today playing the Total War Warhammer campaign lore play. So this one is going to be tricky, because there's vampires, the Moot, and Stirland to talk about. I think I'm going to leave vampires to the end, and that'll probably be more in next episode, because I reckon it'll take a couple episodes to take Sylvania. It's going to be a tough one, so I'll have plenty of time to talk about vampires. So unfortunately, the Von Carsteins are going to get the brunt of it in this episode, but I won't have time to talk about them. So you won't know why we're kicking the crap out of them, just that we are. Vampires bad. That sums it up. But obviously, more detail on that in a bit. But first off, seeing as how this is the battle for the Moot, I'm going to start talking about the Moot, because that way it's a good excuse to talk about halflings, and we haven't done that yet. So, I'm going to read from Sigmar's Heirs to begin with, 2nd edition roleplay supplement. So, talk about the Moot. So, its official name is the Grand County of the Mootland, or Mootland, or the Moot to halflings. It's run by the elect Count Hisme Stoutheart, who's the elder of the halfling Moot. So, they actually have a elect Count vote, although I have read in other sources that their title isn't actually Elector Count, but they're technically an Elector Count because they haven't a vote in the Imperial elections. So they're sort of an Elector Count, but they go by the title of Elder of the Halfling Moot. First and foremost, especially to, other halflings. Anyway, so, sitting on perhaps the most fertile farmland in the Central Empire, the Mootland comprises portions of Averland and Stirland that were torn from their rule in a fit of pique by Emperor Ludwig the Fat and made into an electoral province, ruled by halflings. The Moot is a land of gently rolling hills and grasslands that slopes upwards gradually until the land rises in the greenleaf hills of the southeast, where farmers raise many famous varieties of tobacco, such as Fogmaker Red, Ava Prime Blend, and the notoriously strong Fumigator. Most of the country is open, with scattered copses of oak, beech, elm, and willow along the riverbanks. The only two forests of note are the Sleepy Wood and the mysterious Altar Forest. While the province is watered in its southern half by the Ava Reach, Blue Reach, and Ava rivers, sufficient rainfall waters the land to guarantee regular and good crops throughout the Moot. Mootland is divided into 3 major regions, 4 if you listen to some halflings. Southwest of the River Ava is Avamarch, once a prosperous barony of Avaland. According to old tales, the humans of Avamarch were forced to leave the area at point of spear by the Emperor's troops when Ludwig gave it to the halflings. To this day, visitors can see the ruined foundations of old castles, their stones mostly carted off for new construction, that the local halflings claim were once human settlements. While it is true that some minor families of Avaland claim lordship over areas of the Avamarch, few take them seriously. They occasionally petition the Emperor to have their rights restored, but so far their requests have been all filed and forgotten. 3 towns dominate Avamarch: Surapfel on the west, Einsamholz. Yeah, I'm really not great at these pronunciations. I don't speak German, as I'm sure anyone who can speak German can probably tell from these pronunciations. But anyway, Einsamholz in the centre, and not technically part of the region, and Dreiflüssen at the southeast. Closer in culture to Aveland and other regions, large herds of sheep and goats are common here, while the Western March is famous for its apples. North of the rivers lies Old Stirland, that area of Mootland which was once part of the Grand County of Stirland. It is an area in which farming districts alternate with copses of wood and small fens, and is Mootland's fertile breadbasket. 2 roads access it, but neither traverse the whole of the region. The Moot Road leaves Eicheshatt, something like that, and heads west, where it joins the Old Dwarf Road in Stirland and Warden. The other is a short road that runs from Einsamholz to Fungzig in Averland. Neither could be mistaken for a major road, and indeed most of the traffic is from farmers, herdsmen, and traders going to sell in one or another market. Inside the Mootland, traffic travels an age-worn cart paths or cross-country. The southeastern region, bounded by the loop of the Ava Reach to the north and the border with Averland to the south, is formerly named the Duchy of the Fallow Hills, a title given to it by Avalander, Lord of the 11th century, who could never get anything worthwhile to grow there. Disgusted, he sold the region to the Halflings, soon after Ludwig created the Moot, reportedly muttering, "and good riddance," at the signing. The Halflings, however, knew good soil when they saw it, and how to use it. Using seedlings from tobacco plants they loved, but which grew poorly elsewhere, they planted fields of the crop along the river and in the valleys, so much so that the area is simply known as Greenleafs today, and provides a major cash crop for the Moot. The Mootland governance is anxious to increase their share of the market, that they send traders on long trips around the Empire to give out free samples in the hope that happy customers will want to pay for more. They especially tout its flavour over what they call imported Bretonian stinkweed. So, the people of the Moot. The people of the Mootland are the Halflings, not people at all in the human sense, but a race roughly half man's size that has always seemed to be wherever man has gone. The dwarves record that a tribe of beardless manlings were first thought to be children, travelled with the human tribes as they passed through the World's Edge Mountains. On the other hand, some imperial scholars think the Halflings are a race of man, experimented on by Verena to find a way to resist chaos, while a few others argue Renald created them as a bizarre joke. Regardless of what others say, the Halflings simply say they are as they have always been, and they like it quite a bit. Thank you very much. The Moot is seldom visited by folk of the other provinces, and few can put up with the Halflings for long. Those that do return tell of the sly, secretive undertone of the Halfling character. Theft, mockery, and clannishness are rife. Halflings returning home to the Moot find they are welcomed to an extent. The fertile lands of the Moot have made life easy for the Halflings that live there, and they seem unwilling to be reminded of the outside world. Being a rural folk, even in their towns, the Halflings are earthy types who enjoy good food, strong drink, a good smoke, and conversation that would turn a Marienburg Marine's ears blue. Expressive to a fault, Halflings think nothing of discussing their aunt's nightly business with perfect strangers in complete detail, just to pass the time, you know. They love a good chat, and strangers are welcomed by farmers along the roads as long as they bring gossip, coin, or lunch, or preferably all three. Halflings outside the Moot usually are seen by the small-minded as nothing more than cooks or thieves, or cooks and thieves, though this is rather unfair, because it creates stereotypes out of two Halfling traits. The first is their indisputable ability to make a fine meal out of almost any ingredient. The second is their differing views on property, ownership, and theft. Most Halflings have grown up in what is effectively a large extended family of siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins by way of marriage, and the like. The practice of taking what is needful, be it a pie, a few crowns, or even a piece of jewellery, is deeply embedded in the Halfling character. After all, if everyone is family, why should you ask permission? Of course they'll let you borrow it. These two traits have led to perception outside the Mootland of Halflings as little more than domestic help you have to keep an eye on. Halflings in the Mootland love celebrations and parties as a way to break the routine of country life. Several festivals are held throughout the year: midsummer and midwinter, the spring and fall equinoxes. The grand celebration of Halflings culture, Pie Week. Everyone loves Pie Week. I mean, Pie Week, right? Most Halflings do not wait for an official holiday, however. Any evening is ripe for a party. In addition to eating and drinking and eating, Halfling festivals include dancing around a pole or bonfire. Usually these are segregated by sex, at least to begin with, as the young Halfling males and females try to impress each other. Races are common too. Too short for horses, they are usually foot races across fields and streams and through wooded copses. The first one back winning a ribbon from the hair of a Halfling woman, named Queen of the Festival. The last one back usually gets chucked into a nearby pond. The Halflings worship the gods of the Empire, and Sigmar in particular is venerated as one of their great protectors, though there is no record of Sigmar ever mentioning Halflings, let alone saving them from something. They also have their own gods, but their worship is much more casual than the devotions of humans, dwarves, or elves to their deities. Esmeralda is the goddess of home and hearth, whom Pie Week honours, but there are others too. Phineas, patron of tobacco with the ever-full pouch, Josias, the farmer, who always knows what the weather will be, and can coax life out of the driest dirt, and Hyacinth, the goddess of fertility and childbirth. There are others, but they are obscure and little known to outsiders. Halflings in the Moot and elsewhere have never been known as a martial people, and the idea of halfling warriors is the butt of several jokes amongst humans. The truth, however, is somewhat different. In defence of their homeland, or quarters within a human town during a riot, the normally placid halflings can be aggressive and brave. As part of the war effort, Elder Hisme sent a large contingent of halflings to act as scouts and skirmishers for the Imperial Army. So this war they're talking about would be the Storm of Chaos, which got retconned because of the end times, which, you know, screw the end times, right? So yeah, that's when the source book is sort of based. It's after the Storm of Chaos. So anyway, several were mentioned in dispatches by their commanders for bravery and resourcefulness, though these are often accompanied by complaints from the quartermasters. To the halflings of the Moot, however, the war seems a long way away, and the opinion is that, like the Empire itself, it will pass by without noticing them. Perhaps because of this isolationist attitude, halflings have subverted and changed the Imperial tongue in many ways, with fast pacing, slurring of words, and a mishmash of other accents. The Reichspiel spoken in the Moot can be utterly incomprehensible. Halflings have many slang words and code that change in meaning from year to year. The thieves can't be... the thieves can't used by... What? The thieves can't, sorry. Used by humans is said to be a version of this bastard argot. So, yeah, halflings. Aren't they cool? A lot of character with a halfling. Now, one thing that's fairly unique in Total War, actually, is the Moot is called the Moot, but the Moot isn't a city, right? It's its own province. Yeah, in Total War, right, it's just part of the province of Stirland, which has, was it Wurtbad is the capital of Stirland, which is the capital of Stirland, but then the Moot isn't actually part of Stirland at all, but it is in Total War. But there's no town called the Moot, that's actually the name of the province, but it's a city in Total War. So that kind of makes no sense. But I guess people want to, you know, they've heard about the Moot as the place where halflings live, and I guess it makes more sense to call it the Moot if they're just going to tag it onto another, you know, essentially another country, than to, you know, to sort of give it their actual capital name, which is Eicheshatt, which is, you know, the capital of the Moot. And so I'm going to talk about Eicheshatt as well. So, the capital of the Mootland, Eicheshatt, is utterly unprepossessing at a glance. After a long examination, one's opinion is confirmed. Home to the Elder of the Mootland, which is the title preferred by halflings, as Grand Count, sounds too posh. Eicheshatt is a collection of winding lanes along the banks of the Ava Reach, at the end of the road from Warden and Halstead. Cottages and homes with extensive gardens in the back mix randomly with smiths and other businesses, which usually have the family quarters above them. The halflings love bright colours, so the buildings are often garishly decorated in colours that make visitors wonder about their host's eyesight. All are scaled to the halflings' build too, although inns have special rooms constructed for bigger folk. The residence of the Elder is situated in the centre of town, next to the public green. Although officially designated a palace, the building is a simple two-storey house of wood with a sod roof, and sometimes a goat grazing up there, if the grass has grown too long. So, you know, that really gives you the impression that it's all very Tolkien-esque, right? It's all very much like The Hobbit, you know. Well, like hobbits and, you know, Hobbiton. You know, in the Shire, it's all very heavily inspired by Tolkien, the halflings. So, you know, you can expect a lawn on a roof, you know, with a goat. So, you know, that's good fun. And the throne room is a simple but comfortable parlour where the Elder entertains his official guests. Magnus the Pious stayed there on his way to the war in Kislev, and it is said that he had the most comfortable sleep of his life. Elder Hisme herself rarely stays there, however. A widower, it is too big for her needs. She prefers to stay at her farm outside of town, where a body can get some practical work done, and have me own outhouse. As the centre of government, Eicheshatt is also where the general moot of the halflings meets once every 3 years. Open to all halflings, whether they live in the moot or elsewhere, the moot meets to decide questions of policy for the province, pass what few laws are needed, choose the Elder for the next 3 years. They have re-elected Hisme at the last 10 moots, a record, though she is thinking of retiring, and have a grand time while seeing old friends and swapping hard cider recipes. The General Moot also acts as a court of final appeal in the Mootland, where cases that cannot be resolved at the local level are heard. Most often these are disputes over land or water rights, or an unpaid debt. Sometimes, however, a crime is more serious. Murder, while rare, does happen. Although the penalty for murder in the rest of the Empire is death by hanging, the Halflings instead prefer eternal banishment, on pain of death by stoning should the person ever return. This sentence must be affirmed at the General Moot. Humans or other non-Halflings found guilty of serious crimes are turned over to Averland or Stirland authorities for sentencing under their laws. So that's kind of cool, right? They got their own little government going, and it's just a real shame that there are no Halfling units in Total War. Because, you know, the Moot would be its own place if there were Halflings. That would just be so fun. And also be really fun to play as, you know, even if it was folded into Stirland in the game like it is now. It'd be great if Stirland could just recruit a load of Halfling units. It would just add so much character to the game. I mean, there's the odd event about the Moot, you know, being like, oh, vampires are coming, and you just get leadership bonuses against vampires or humans, you know, whether you listen to them or not. And you know, I think that's very, it's a bit understated, you know. I'd like Halflings to have a bit more, you know, a bit more say, I think, in the game, because they're barely mentioned, and they've just got so much character, you know. But anyway, so now that we've spoken about the Moot and about Halflings a bit, let's talk about Stirland, because I'm already, what, 16 minutes into this episode, and we haven't even talked about Stirland yet. And now I own them, thanks to Confederation. So really should talk about my new lands, really. So we're going to do that now. So its official title is the Grand County of Stirland, and it's ruled by the elector Count Ulrich Haupt Anderson, who's the Grand Count of Stirland, the Prince of Wurtbad, and Overlord of Sylvania. Obviously, that's not widely enforced because, well, Sylvania is a bit of a mess, isn't it? But you know, we'll get to that. So this whole bit here, all about Stirland, it does actually include Sylvania, sort of, you know, when it describes it, which is nice, you know, because it means we can get a bit about Sylvania as well, which we're starting to sort of tread water in. You know, we've already taken a settlement there, and so, you know, we've got a stake in it now, so we can talk about both at once. So that's kind of nice, because as far as Ulrich Haupt Anderson's concerned, Sylvania is his land. I don't think the vampire counts would agree, but, you know, let's just not argue with him, alright? You know, we just made friends with him, so let's keep it that way. So the land is bounded by the World's Edge Mountains on the east. Obviously that's, you know, on Sylvania's end. On the east, and on the north, west and south by the rivers Ster, Ava and Reich. Stirland is a rugged province of highly mixed terrain. Its reputation as a rural backwater is largely undeserved, for it has many towns of substantial size and does a brisk trade with the dwarfs of Zufbar. Nevertheless, its location away from the centres of power and the presence of the dread lands of Sylvania make people think ill of Stirland. The northern portions along the banks of the Ster are covered with the last reaches of the Great Forest. To the east, beyond Sigfriedhof, the forest thins and breaks up into separate woods, the feared Hunger and Grim Woods. Places a foul reputation. Past the Grim Wood, which I like to think, right, although, you know, grim is a general term for, you know, not a nice thing. I do like to think that it has some connection to the Brothers Grimm, because obviously, you know, classic sort of German folklore there, you know, and fairy tales. So that, I'm not sure if that is the case, but I like to think so. I might look into it at some point, because again, that's a great sort of source of, you know, sort of fantasy, really. You know, those old books. So anyway, so past the Grimwood, the dismal village marks the start of the Hell Fen, which is mostly in Ostermark, I believe. Anyway, where Imperial forces destroyed the army of Manfred von Karstein, one of the vampire counts of Sylvania. So yeah, there's actually the Battle of Hell Fen as a quest battle for the vampire counts. So yeah, but obviously if you're playing as a vampire count, you win that one. But no, in canon, no, he lost that. So the west is dominated by Sturhugel, the hilly country that was once which was the first home of the Styrian tribe thousands of years ago, crossed by the Old Dwarf Road and the Nuln Road. The hills are home mostly to villages of sheep herders, who trade in the markets of Flensburg and Warden. Hidden amongst their winding track and foggy vales, however, are the tombs of the ancient chiefs of the Stirlander tribe, dug into the hillsides or built as turf-covered barrows. These date from pre-imperial times. Their entrances are well hidden by their builders, though sometimes an entrance will become exposed by rains or flooding. Locals consider these tombs cursed, and it seems every village has a tale of someone who has gone missing whilst investigating the final resting places of the old kings. Still, treasure hunters and necromancers seek out the tombs of the Stirlander, each for their own reasons. And I'm assuming, treasure hunters, they would want treasure, and the necromancers probably want bodies. Just a hunch, just a hunch there. But anyway, it is east of the Stirland that holds the rest of the province in genuine dread. However, for it is here that one finds benighted Sylvania. From the sombre town of Templehof, which has not had a resident priest of more in 800 years, to the foothills of the World's End Mountains between the Ava Reach and the Stir. Stirland's largest region is a place of fear and gloom. So, yeah, Sylvania is actually the biggest part of Stirland, and it's the most messed up, so, So, yeah, Stirland's actually a massive province, if you include Sylvania. But anyway, you can kind of tell that from, if you played Total War, which I'm sure you have, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this. You can tell it's a big one. So anyway, it is said that ghosts walk freely at night among the haunted hills, and the deep fogs of Sylvanian woods are said to sometimes trap the soul within them, forced to wander forever. The eastern portion of the province is the bleakest, where ancient black castles sit on their craggy peaks like black vultures staring down on the towns below. Sylvania is a place most Stirlanders try to forget about, and the Elector Count's tax collectors come calling only when accompanied by a large armed guard. Even the dwarfs of Zuvbar avoid Sylvania, preferring the road south to Shramblin, and then through the Moot if they wish to travel to Wurtbad. So now the people, they're a fun folk. So descended from the Osserborn tribe of old, Stirlanders are a short, thick-set people, much like their Ostermark neighbours. Dark hair and suspicious of strangers, their bloodline has remained one of the most undiluted in the Empire. Some folk point out this is because they're inbred peasants, but as the Stirland nobility are keen to point out, even the most base-born soul can trace their line back over many generations. Famed for their superstition, Stirlanders are a cautious lot. Also said to be overly rural and backward, Stirlanders are often mocked by the rest of the Empire for their slow pace of life and speech. For their part, the folk of Stirland are proud of their preservation of ancient customs, and of their long view of life. At their best, Stirlanders are calm, thoughtful, and practiced at taking their time about things. Fond of long, ribald tales, the local tavern is the heart of any Stirlander community. Here people gather to hear their favourite stories, the local gossip, and occasionally news from the outside world. Racing is also a firm favourite of the Stirland people, though not the traditional foot or horseback racing liked by the rest of the Empire. As most communities are based about arable farmlands, geese, cows, pigs, and ratting dogs are frequently raced against one another in local competitions. Usually held on a festival or market day, the winning beast is often awarded ribbons and reprieve, meaning it will never be destined for the table. At their worst, Stirlanders are isolationists, suspicious, and hidebound. Stirlanders, however, see themselves as simply keeping traditions. They've worked in the past, so no sense in changing now, as Stirlanders like to say. Although they probably say it a lot slower, because, silly peasants. Anyway, they find it hard to make friends, often taking years to accept newcomers within their communities. Most of the Empire regard them as savages, simply for their custom of drinking hot ale. Hot ale? That's disgusting. Anyway, taverns Stirland over have a large iron poker kept by the fire. Cold travellers and old soaks thrust the poker into the fire whilst awaiting their drink, and then plunge it into their tankard, warming the drink and making an alcoholic cloud of steam. There are many rather odd customs. For example, when strangers approach a village in the Stirhugels, children will throw pig droppings at them in the belief that this will drive away evil spirits. I know if I was an evil spirit, I wouldn't like that much, so, maybe there's grounds for that. So they believe that a person hit with tossed pig excrement is especially protected. In the villages near Sylvania, houses and windows are lined with an especially pungent strain of local garlic to ward off what are euphemistically called the Count's men. When someone vanishes, locals swear that the fault lies with old garlic, not that the folk belief itself is wrong. Stirlanders in the central portion of the province are known for their dislike of halflings, for they still resent the 1500-year-old decision that tore away their best farmlands and gave them to the Shorties. Well, now they're being a bit racist there. I don't like that. Although this... you can say they got the short straw. Anyway, although this resentment rarely breaks out in violence, the belief that halflings are thieves at heart is stronger here than in any other part of the Empire. In Wardern, Wodern, I don't know, it's got an umlaut or something above it, so I'm not entirely trying to pronounce the O there. But Wardern, there is a tradition when celebrating a child's birthday to make a straw man the size of a halfling and stuff it with candies and treats he stole from the children. Then it is hung from a branch and the blindfolded children whack at it with sticks until it breaks and gives them back their candy. Locals deny that drunks have occasionally instead tied up a real halfling. The people of Sylvania are a dour lot, not surprising, rarely smiling and not fond of talking to strangers. Doors are kept bolted and people regularly make a sign against the evil eye when something unsettling happens. They are fatalistic, accepting that life has a dismal end in store for them. So resigned to their destiny are the Sylvanians that few ever leave the province, much to the relief of their neighbours. Visitors often find it hard to get around the rustic accent and exceedingly slow speech of Stirlanders, for they often repeat questions and usually spend a good deal of time pondering before answering. Mummers often use a mocking form of the Stirland accent when representing a slow or rural character in a play. So I want to talk about Wurtbad in a bit, but first I'm looking at there's like a gazetteer here with all sort of stats on the different towns. So obviously it's got Stirland and Sylvania in here. And what's rather amusing here is Templehof is in here. Van Haldenhof, Waldenhof, all the ones ending with Hof are basically Sylvania. But their capital, Drakenhof, well, I say their capital, is the capital in Total War. Only 250 people live in Drakenhof. It's just a castle, which is kind of novel. But it is the old capital of the von Drack family and the von Carsteids, Sylvania. However, Waldenhof is also here, and so population of 4,200. Right, so much bigger than 250. And that is actually the capital of the County of Sylvania. And that isn't the case in Total War. So that's an interesting one, I think. It's interesting to know that. I think I just went with Drakenhof because that's more of a sort of a... For the vampires, especially, that's sort of the site of their power. So kind of makes sense in that context, right? So, I'll give them that. So let's quickly talk Wurtbad. So it's the capital of Stirland, as I'm sure you guessed. Wurtbad rests at the terminus of the Old Dwarf Road, surrounded by the Great Forest. By far the largest town in Stirland, rather. Its whitewashed walls and buildings and its busy docks and markets tell of a prosperous trading town. By decree of the elector counts, all the wine produced in Western Stirland must be sold through Wurtbad, earning the town a sobriquet for the wine capital of the Empire. Traders come from all over the Empire and beyond to bid on next year's vintage. And the Vintners Guild is an important political force. The city is ruled by the Haupt Anderson family, in their capacities as princes of Wurtbad, as they are also the elector counts. Wurtbad is a regional centre for government and diplomacy. Innkeeping is a respected art in Wurtbad, with the Golden Eagle Inn being a favourite of visiting dignitaries. The town is also famous for its several hot spring baths, and many of the wealthy come to take the waters. Because the rich and powerful are often guests, spies and assassins regularly ply their trades here. The Count therefore maintains a vigilant secret police force to prevent embarrassing incidents. Would be pretty embarrassing if, the dignitary came to visit and he got assassinated, wouldn't it? So, yeah, good old secret police, making sure assassins don't get the better of people. So that's fun. So anyway, let's talk about Waldenhof, which is Sylvania's capital. So, Waldenhof, capital of Sylvania. Waldenhof is a walled town that sits where the rivers come together to create the Ster. Built long ago of dark stone, with gargoyles watching from seemingly every corner of peaked roofs, Waldenhof is a town of perpetual gloom. As a traveller once remarked, it looks like something right out of every child's nightmare. Though it has a dockyard at the bottom of the cliffs on which it looms, boats rarely come this far, in spite of the prospect of trade with the dwarfs in the hills upriver. Castle Waldenhof dominates the countryside for miles around. Many regard the sight of its black mass an omen of bad luck, for it is from here that the Count von Karstein continues his cruel reign. The residents of Waldenhof lock and bolt their doors every night and let no one in, even should they be screaming for help. Only taverns are open in the evening, as is required by law. Some say this is because the inns of Waldenhof are favourite hunting grounds for the Count's retainers. So, really shitty place to live. Yeah, not fun. Not fun at all. So, yeah, it's kind of cool though, the fact that there are people living in these places, and the vampire counts, basically, you know, they do have dominion over people. It's not just like a land of the dead. Sure, there are, you know, the dead walking around everywhere, but at the end of the day, there are people living there. I mean, you know, horrible place to live, but there's still people living there. So, you know, I think that's sort of, it's kind of ignored in Total War, really. But then I guess, you know, you don't draft any human, you know, soldiers as Sylvania. So I guess it wouldn't make any sense, you know, to sort of show that in a sort of visceral way in a Total War game, because obviously it's all about the armies, right? But no, Sylvania, it's a place where people live, and yeah, in constant despair, but still, it's a place where people live. So once again, we get to that point where I'm running out of VT, and you know, need to wrap up the episode. But I mean, hopefully that gives you a good sort of, you know, a good impression of these lands. Because yeah, I think it's really cool. I think it'll be great when we start talking about sort of vampires and stuff in the next episode. It should be good fun because yeah, there's a lot to talk about. Actually, there's a Lamian Countess thanks to one of the mods I'm running. It's the All Tabletop Lords mod by EMC Dunner, and that's a really good one. Also, it gives me a good excuse to talk about a load of other different generals and stuff, which hopefully we'll get to at some point. Oh, we ran out of VT. Ah well, there's probably a screenshot of something showing right now, so you know, I hope it's a good one. But yeah, so I will be fighting that Lamian Countess and telling you what on earth that is in the next episode, and hopefully that battle will go a lot better than that battle I had in this episode. You know the one, it was sloppy. It's a very sloppy battle. But you know, the odds are in my favour, so I wasn't taking it very seriously. Probably should have done though. You know, I'm trying to show off in these, right? But yeah, so guys, if you enjoyed this video, comment, like, and subscribe, and yeah, tell your friends about me. All right, you know, I'd love to see this channel grow a bit. It'd be really fun. So yeah, so feel free to say hi. So guys, I will see you in the next video. Have a good day, guys.